Alisha. I work in the genealogy department at the West Waco Library. Today we are going to do a keepsake craft with photo tile coasters. It's a great way to put your photograph memories on display. If you have like really cool old photos that you want to show off, but maybe you want to keep the actual photo safe, this is a fun way to show off your old photos. Let's start with supplies. You're going to need just a basic 4x4 inch white tile. You can get this at any hardware store. As many as you need, maybe a few extras just in case. You're going to need Mod Podge. This is the type I chose. It's dishwasher safe, so that kind of leaves you with a moisture resistant barrier, so that's going to protect your picture. We have copies of our photos. Please do not use your original photo. Don't cut up your good photos. Make color copies. You can actually bring them to the library with a flash drive. If you don't, like me, I don't have a scanner and a printer at home. So I actually scanned these at the library, saved them to a flash drive, then I was able to print them the size that I needed for my project. You can do that too. We need brush. I'm using just a cheap foam brush. You could use a soft bristled paintbrush. And this is what you're going to seal your project with. This is kind of particular. It's an engine enamel spray. So what we want is a coaster that you can actually use, something that you can sit a hot or a cold drink on without ruining all your hard work. And so the great thing about this is it is moisture and heat resistant. Up to 500 degrees heat resistant. I don't know anyone that's drinks that hot, so I think if you set your cup of coffee on it, it should be fine. I think, also, I've got some alcohol prep pads. Before you start your project, make sure you wash your tiles with soap and water, and then wipe them down with an alcohol pad. That's going to remove any soap residue and fingerprints, oils from your hands. That's going to make sure that your Mod Podge and everything sticks really well. We have these cork squares. They're the same size as your tile. We found these probably online. They already have the adhesive on the back, which is great. That's super convenient. You have alternatives to this. Sometimes you can buy the foam or felt dots that have adhesive on the back. You can use those. You can hot glue felt on the back of it if you want to. If that's your option, it'll work just as well. What that does is protects your furniture surfaces from scratches because the backs of these tiles are not smooth. Okay, now let's get started. First, start with your tile, clean and prep. Start with your photo, trimmed down to slightly smaller than your tile. You want a little bit of bare tile around the edge of your photo so you can seal in the edges of that paper when you do your Mod Podge layers. So the tile I think is 4x4 inch, so I printed my photos and cropped them down to I think a 3.75 inch square. Start with a reasonably thin layer of Mod Podge. I'll show you why. Just to start. This Mod Podge, the directions say to roll it on the table to mix it before you use it. I've already done that, so I'm not going to show you. Just a thin layer, brush strokes all in one direction. And then center your photo with that little bit of tile around the edge. And smooth it down. You don't want any air bubbles. Make sure you get all the edges down and the corners. And use your finger to press down. Use the other hand to hold it in place so it doesn't shift while you're doing that. So like that. That's your first step. I did one tile with a heavier layer of Mod Podge initially, and even though I pressed all the air bubbles out of my image, it bubbled just because the paper got too wet. And it's not going to hurt. You can still carry on, press it down, press the wrinkle, but it's going to be wrinkled. So if you want a nice smooth image, a nice thin layer of Mod Podge will work fine for that first layer to stick down your photo. And set that aside. Here's one that's already dry. Next step, after you give about probably at least 20 minutes for your first layer to dry to the touch and your photo to be adhered, You're going to do it again on top of your image. You're going to do all in one direction, an even layer. And it still doesn't have to be a really thick layer. I like to go along the sides to make sure there's not any big drips sticking to the sides. It's going to take another 20 minutes, maybe more, for this to dry. You want it dry to the touch. It will go on kind of milky when it's wet, but as it dries, it will clear. So don't worry if it looks whitish and you think your image isn't going to show, it'll dry clear. You're going to repeat this step 2 to 3 times longer with about 20 minutes of drying time in between each layer. As you do new layers, say once this one was dry, we went this way, your next layer, you're going to want to go the opposite direction. So that way you get kind of a crosshatch. You're going to see brush strokes when you do this. If you crosshatch your layers, they're going to be less noticeable than if they're all just going back and forth in one direction. Here is one finished. It's had its top layers done. It's had plenty of drying time. Your next step, which I can't really show you because you don't want to do this inside, but your next step is going to be to spray your sealer. Please do this outside. Don't do it inside. You need somewhere with plenty of ventilation and air circulation. So take it outside. I just put my tiles that were ready to spray, I set them inside an Amazon box, just a box I had lying around, to kind of catch the overspray. Follow the directions on the can, just spray it back and forth from a certain distance, and I gave that a few hours to dry, and then I did a second coat. It doesn't have to be a heavy coat. I think thin light coats would be better than just doing one, like multiple light coats would be better than just doing one really heavy coat, because then you risk having drips. Let's see. Once that's done, once you have all your layers of Mod Podge and you have your sealant, give it plenty of time to dry. The last thing you want to do is add your cork to the back. So this one's ready. We're just gonna, these were prepped and already have their adhesive on them, so it's just as simple as pulling off the paper, lining it up, and pressing it down. I like to press along the edges to make sure that adhesive really sticks all the way around the edges. Like that. And then just press and make sure all that adhesive touches. An important thing about these, if you want to use these as gifts, the Mod Podge bottle says that other than being dry, it doesn't take long to dry to the touch, but Mod Podge requires time to cure. So once these are done, set them out flat, don't stack them. Set them out flat and give them at least 28 days to cure. So if you're thinking Christmas gifts, gather your stuff now and get it ready and give yourself plenty of time. So we hope you enjoyed the craft. I hope it makes a really great gift for someone special this Christmas. And you can come to the library and find so many books with so many great crafts in them to prepare you for gift-giving season.